Good morning. This is Dr. David A. Padgett. This is World Regional Geography, Geography 1010, Section 98B, February 8th, 2021, spring semester at Tennessee State University. Today we have several items on the agenda. The first item is for me to finish up where we left off last week, looking at careers in geography and geospatial technology. After that, we're going to look at a few of your responses to last week's assignment, writing assignment 1 and writing assignment 2. After that, I'll start the lecture on map interpretation basics. And then after that, I will peruse, or I will discuss the assignment for this week, which is writing assignment 3. Okay, so let's start with me sharing the screen, and here we are at the course webpage. And so let's go to the reading assignment from last week, where I left off, which is careers in geography and geospatial technology. And so if you remember from last week, I went through most of this with you just to give you an idea of how geography and geospatial technology is an important aspect in your everyday lives, and perhaps can provide some career options later on down the line. So we looked at some of these various occupations and job opportunities and business opportunities in GIS, how various companies that you might not expect use this technology, such as Domino's Pizza and Walgreens. We talked about how GIS is used in a variety of disciplines, such as engineering and real estate and location analysis, and so on and so forth. And so you should, again, review this list of opportunities when you get a chance. But I wanted to pick it up from where I left off last time with this article, which focuses upon those of you who might have entrepreneurial aspirations. And you might think, well, I'm just taking this geography class because it's required. I'm not going to do anything with this except get a grade. But you never know. You never know. So let's look at this article. Now, this article is dated. It is a little older. It's 20 years old. It's from Essence Magazine. Okay. It's from Essence Magazine, March of 2001, almost 20 years ago. And this article is entitled Angela Allen's Money Map. So who is Angela Allen? Angela Allen, at the time, was a journalist. And she was a journalist. She wasn't a geographer. She wasn't a cartographer, but she had an idea that was spatially based. So what you have to understand is that when automatic teller machines, or ATMs, first came out, or were first invented, or first came onto the scene, so to speak, they weren't everywhere. Like now, there's ATMs in the gas station. You can go to the grocery store. There's ATMs everywhere. Restaurants. That wasn't the case 20 years ago. 20 years ago, ATMs were only at banks, pretty much. And in many cases, they were not on the same network. So let's say you were with Bank of America, and you had your Bank of America ATM or debit card, and that and you lived in Atlanta, and let's say all of the Bank of America ATMs in Atlanta were on the Quest network. So there was a network called Quest. And let's say you traveled to Washington, D.C., and now all the ATMs in Washington, D.C. are on the Most network. Guess what? You wouldn't be able to use your card, or maybe you'd have to go to a city. If you traveled, not only would you have to find out where the ATMs were located, you'd also have to learn which ones were in your network. Okay, now of course that's not a problem, but this was 20 years ago. So Angela Allen apparently was a person who liked to travel, and it says here that she was frustrated when none of her travel guidebooks listed ATM locations. So, boom, she had an idea. So she decided to bury herself in map books. She attended map making conventions. Yes, there are map making conventions. I used to go to a lot of them before the pandemic. She taught herself the basics of cartography. So cartography. Um, and so she hired a cartographer. So she knew that she had the idea. She had to learn enough about cartography to understand the art and science of map making. And then she launched her business. She took out a $12,000 loan from her 401k plan. That shows the importance of savings. So she was 32 years old, probably 10 years out of college. So this is what you have to be thinking about. What am I want to be doing 10 years after I graduate? So do I really need to go out here and buy this Lexus? Do I really need to go out here and spend $1,000 on clothes every month? Or do I save that money, and then when an opportunity comes along, such as with Angela Allen, she was able to pull $12,000 from her 401k to invest in this business called Angela Allen's Money Map. And so she immediately had success. She ran 10,000 copies of this map. Now, this was hard copy. Now, again, this is before Google Maps. This is before all of that, all these electronic maps that we have now. This is before all that. This is before really the internet was really where it is now. This is before social media. Okay, understand when this was. So based upon Angela Allen's idea, based in cartography, she made $100,000 profit after her second year in business off of a $12,000 investment. That's an amazing, amazing return on investment. Okay. And so again, Angela Allen, not a cartographer, not a geographer, but certainly taught herself enough about cartography and geography to launch this very lucrative business venture. And again, you have to understand the context. This was a while ago, and she was somewhat of a pioneer. Now, of course, we can just Google ATM locations, but that did not exist. And so Angela Allen had an idea, and it turned out to be very profitable. So let's fast forward to a time closer to where we are. And so this is an article about Lawrence Griffith, and he is the founder of a company called Sample Saint. And Sample Saint uses a technology called geofencing. Geofencing is the technical application behind your consumer notifications. And you're familiar with this, how this works, right? So you get your cell phone, you get your AT&T or Verizon or whatever, whoever your provider happens to be, that provider has entered into a business agreement with various brand names or businesses or vendors. You buy the phone, someone you have something called implied consent when you sign your contract. So when you sign your cell phone contract, you have implied consent to allow for these businesses to send you notifications. So they send you notifications about what's on sale. They send you notifications with coupons. They send you notifications about whatever it is you happen to buy frequently, right? So that's step one. When you travel and you are in close proximity to a brand or a restaurant, a store, or what have you that you frequent, you get a notification, and that notification is pushed to your cell phone to keep you in contact with the brand, whatever it may be. Now, some people are creeped out by that because you're literally being tracked. Your consumer behavior is being tracked and documented, right? Some people are creeped out by that, but most people are not. Most people like getting notifications. Most people like to hear about sales and discounts and free stuff from brand names that you frequent the most. You know, if you're a big fan of Panera Bread, wouldn't you just love to know that they have a 2-for-1 on their flatbread pizzas, right? That pops up on your phone right at lunchtime, right when you're hungry. A lot of people like that. That's very convenient. Instead of driving around trying to figure out where you're going to eat, bam, it's on your right there on your phone, right? Get the notification, you're on your way to Panera Bread. But in terms of, so this is an entrepreneurial venture. And so uh, Sample Saint founder Lawrence Griffith uses geofencing. It's a multi-billion-dollar market, as we know. This article was written in 2013. So the way this works is that Griffith charges vendors or businesses 170 to $500,000 flat licensing fee, right? Excuse me, so that their products can be pushed to the millions of consumers out there, right? And so he earns from $1 to $5 million each year off of his app. So this is what we call passive income. So Lawrence Griffith could be out shopping, he could be golfing, he could be asleep. Meanwhile, his app is making money. That's called passive income. Obviously, he did the front work, he did the leg work up front to start this company. But obviously, it's making money when he isn't working. So that's a geofencing application. It's based entirely upon the basic principles of geography and cartography. And obviously, it's supported by high tech, including satellites and GPS and so on and so forth. It's a GPS enabled mobile application. So this is another way that people are using geography and GIS. I have friends of mine who are statisticians. One is a mobile nail tech. She uses a mobile app to get to her customers, especially during the pandemic. During the pandemic, remember the nail shops closed down. Her customers still want to get their nails done. So she got a mobile app. She would go do in-home visits to do these women's nails. And it took her out of being only cash based, right? Most of those statistician type businesses, hair, nails, whatever, are usually cash based. Uh, but if you sometimes you can lose clients because a lot of people don't use cash nowadays, especially if you're going to go to their homes. They're not going to have cash laying around. But if you can make the transaction electronically, then that expands the customer base. And then you take it when she took it mobile, then that released her from being uh, from having to wait for customers to show up in her salon, which was closed down. Let's go to another example. Here is an application called Movie Pass. Now, Movie Pass might be a casualty of the pandemic, but here's how Movie Pass works. Two gentlemen, these two guys right here, look like some kind of young guys, Stacy Spikes and Hammett Watt, had an idea for a GPS enabled app. And so what the app does, it announces to people who go to movies a lot. So if you were a person that actually was into going out to the movies, I don't mean sitting at home, not going to the movies, but if you actually were a person that liked going to the movie theater, what this app would do is it would tell you if there were movies in your area of interest in town, or maybe if you happen to be traveling, you're going to visit a cousin, looking for something to do. If there was a movie that you might like in town, it would send you a notification. And also, you would only pay a subscription fee of, say, $30 some a month. So if you went to see 5 movies in a month, obviously that would cover the cost of your subscription, because movies are what, $15, $18 now. And so now these two gentlemen just had this idea, and based upon the idea, they were able to raise $5 million in financing for investors that include America Online. So if you think about it, this was before maybe this app was at the beta stage and still in the testing stage, and this is a GPS enabled application. But the idea was thought so highly of that people invested $5 million into it. Okay, so again, you don't necessarily have to be a coder. You don't necessarily have to have any of these types of skills. But if you have an idea, if you're able to think spatially, think about how a certain problem can be solved spatially, such as this one, then you can definitely see the value and the potential for making money as an entrepreneur using geolocation services. Think about it. If these investors invested $5 million into MoviePass, they're not investing that $5 million as a charitable donation. They want to make that money back and more. So if $5 million is the investment level at the ground floor, who knows how much these investors were expecting to make. So this is a very lucrative idea. And so if you think spatially, think like a geographer, think about how this technology can be used, who knows? Who knows what you might be able to do? And that is regardless of what your professional aspirations may be. So I thought I'd just share that with you. Also, remember, some of this information will be covered on Unit Exam A. Unit Exam A, speaking of which, I am thinking that it'll probably be administered on the 24th of February, excuse me. I told you I'll give you 2 weeks notice. I had to make some adjustments because of all the late ads I had to the course, which is understandable in these times. So right now I'm thinking February 24th. I'll probably make the official announcement on Wednesday about when the unit exam A will be. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do today is move on to the assignment that is due today, and just look at some of what was shared or turned in. So I'm going to go. Okay, so and I'm going to stop my share for right now because I'm just going to be reading. So if you notice the assignment for this week, writing assignment 1 and writing assignment 2, I did push the deadline back to today. And so just be aware of that. So if you have not turned it in, please do so as soon as possible. Okay, here's a student's, first I'm going to read the student submission for the assignment, define geography in your own words. So here's one submission. Let's see, the person says, or the student says, there are a few different things that are covered when it comes to the meaning of geography. The meaning of this term for me is basically location. I see geography as the understanding and studying of different locations all around the world. Also, what that land is made of and how it became the way it is. For example, the understanding of Antarctica and how it was formed could be studied by the form of geography. I also believe that the studying of the Grand Canyon can be studied under geography as well. I know that geography can cover a lot of different topics, but geography to me is basically the understanding of a location and its nature. So that's one person's submission. Very good, very exactly what I'm looking for. Not a dictionary definition, just what that student thought geography happens to be. I'm gonna read another one. Let's see. Okay, this student wrote, what is geography to me? Geography to me is the study of the earth, is the study of nature and natural habitats, the study of the physicality and lands of the earth. When I think of geography, I think of jungles, deserts, and animals in their natural habitat of the earth. Okay, that's good, exactly, just nice, whatever people are thinking. And let's see. Let's see what this student had to say. What is geography? Geography is the study of the Earth's surface and its features, as well as the links between people and their environments. Based on this definition, we can see that there are two different classifications of geography: physical geography and human geography, which both contribute to the subject as a whole. Okay, so those are just a few examples of what has been turned in thus far for writing assignment 1. And again, if you have not done the writing assignment, please turn it in as soon as possible. I'm going to talk about that in more detail later on. I'm going to move on to writing assignment 2. Now, for writing assignment 2, you were to share a memorable mapping experience. And so let's see what this person shared. Okay, this person says, I do not really have too many experiences with maps, but this one is most recent. My granddad is 88 years old. He is not up to date with the new technology such as Google Maps and GPS. He still uses a regular map. He takes it everywhere he goes. About 3 months ago, we went on a trip to Dallas, Texas. We were trying to get him to use a GPS, but he said it was too much for him, and he wanted us to read the map to him. I felt embarrassed because it was hard for us to read the maps and trying to give him directions before he gets to exit. We kept missing different exits and got lost because we could not read the map. We went hours out of the way and ended up in a different part of Texas instead. before that day, I never tried to read or pick up a traditional map. I always rely on my phone or car map to get me around. Thinking back to this day, because it took us so long for us to get to our destination, it is important to learn how to read maps because you never know when you have a tech fail. Most importantly, it could give better directions and basic navigational skills. Very, very good essay. Yes, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Sometimes we become over reliant upon Google Maps and our phones. And then when there's no service or when you have no electricity, say for instance, if there's some kind of a disaster, if there's a tornado or hurricane and all the lights are out and there you are with no phone and you have to try to find your way to the nearest Red Cross shelter or the nearest hospital if somebody's injured. Now you have to know how to navigate without all this technology. So it is still very important to be able to navigate without all these technological advances. Very, very good, very good. I really enjoyed reading that one. Let's go to another one for writing assignment two. Let's see. The student shared an experience. Well, if you answered this assignment and your answer is only a couple of sentences for the essay, sharing a memorable experience with maps or mapping, please go back and revisit your work because I asked for an essay, not a couple of sentences. The first one, a couple of sentences was fine, but for this one, like the response I just read, which told a story, that's really what I want for this one. Let's see, who is, all right, let's see, let's take a look at this one. Hopefully this one is, okay, just a couple of minutes here. Hopefully not a couple of minutes, hopefully a few seconds. Okay, here we go. Okay, here is a student who wrote a story. And the student says, when I was younger, my parents and I used to go on a lot of road trips, places like Tennessee, North and South Carolina, Florida, and even Texas. I was about 5 or 6 when I started remembering about the trips we used to take. Around that time, smartphones were just becoming a thing, so we had to use a thing called MapQuest. Yes. My mom would sit on the computer and gather directions to the place we were about to go. Once I saw the pages of directions, I knew it was time to go on a vacation. Before there was Apple Maps and Google Maps on our phone, there was a thing called MapQuest. My mother used this website to get directions to where we were going. She would type the address on the website and many pages would come out turn by turn until you were able to get to the destination. MapQuest was launched in 1996, still available today, but most people find it easier to use the GPS system that is equipped on their phone. Seeing the symbol of the website on top of those papers made me excited, although I never actually held the papers and gave directions while in the car. I just really enjoyed the ride. The scenery of traveling through different states, through all the different states and through different seasons was very enjoyable for me. It was enjoyable then, and it's much more enjoyable now since I can drive by myself. The ride from Cincinnati to Nashville is very peaceful for me, although since times have changed, I use Apple Maps to help me on my road trips now. So, yes, MapQuest. I almost forgot all about MapQuest. Yeah, we have come a long way since MapQuest. Let me read one more here, and then we'll move on. Okay, let's see. Okay, this person says, I have experience with using maps very often. In my everyday life, I do use my phone most times when I am in need of directions. It is a very convenient and fast way to get results. Maps on the phone are also very helpful because the GPS will speak to you It is a very safe option too. It is hands-free. However, I have had my fair share using paper maps as well. Of course, most kids learn a lot about maps in their younger days. I remember using maps for certain activities when I was little to show us how to get acquainted with them. More recently, I took a class in high school called Earth Science. I had to get familiar with more intricate maps, maps that had to deal with mountains and volcano areas. It was one of the harder assignments I had to complete for sure. I think I definitely should have a little bit more experience with maps. If ever in a situation of any kind where I might need one, it is best I know how to read one thoroughly and not just guessing. To know how to help others with this kind of information, also, it is a good skill to have that not a lot of people have in this day and age. Another very well written, very good essay. So we had some really good submissions for that, the first for that assignment especially. And again, if you have not submitted your work, I'm going to share my screen again. Again, the writing assignment 1 and writing assignment 2 are both due today. I pushed the deadline back a week because a lot of people added the class last week, and we're in class for the first time. Again, if you read the syllabus and the course rules, you hopefully notice that every assignment has a great grace period for lateness. It's 1 point off for every 12 hours it's late. And so these are difficult times. I know that there's a lot going on. You might miss a deadline for an assignment. But if that happens, don't panic. You have a grace period. Just get it done. Turn in a day late, 2 days late. Now, the grace period only lasts for 5 days. After 5 days, that's it. 5 calendar days, not business days. So be sure to turn this assignment in. Most assignments in here are worth 25 points. So remember, if you turn an assignment in, say 24 hours and 1 minute late, that's only 2 points off. So you could still get a 23 out of 25, which is an A, even if it's a day late. So the one thing you do not want to do is take any zeros in here. There's no reason for it. Okay, you can turn something in late. Even if you get 20 out of 25 points, it's better than getting no points. Okay, so just if you have any questions about the about that rule, the grace period, read the syllabus, read the class rules and regulations for yourself. Always read things for yourself. Don't rely on other people to read things to you or for you. Then if you have any questions beyond that, after reading for yourself, please ask if there's any confusion or you're not sure about anything. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the main part of our lecture for today, and that is um, the map interpretation basics. So you had the reading assignment about map interpretation basics, and before we go there, I just wanted to mention very quickly that well, maybe not, maybe not. Let's just move on. Okay, so here's your map interpretation reading assignment. It's in several parts. We're going to start off with map interpretation basics, which is a PDF document. And so that's where we're going to start. And notice in this document, you should pay attention to the vocabulary words in bold: latitude, longitude, cartographer. We'll get into these important lines of latitude and longitude later on. Contour lines, we'll talk about that a little bit today. Location, we'll talk about location and latitude, longitude later on today. cartography, and so on and so forth. Um, but we're going to talk about the pertinent elements of maps today. The first element is the date. Knowing when a map was created is very important. Again, a map is a snapshot in time. Most maps are not real-time visualizations. Uh, Most of them, even those electronic maps like Google Maps, are snapshots in time. I'm sure that you've looked on a Google map and seen a building that was under construction that you know for a fact is standing now. And so you have an old remote sensing image on a map in Google Maps, um, but it's still useful. At least you know where the building is. So make note of the date. We'll look at some maps in here and just be aware, understand that most maps have dates and you should know what those dates are so that you can understand what's happening on the ground at the time that the map was made. And looking at historical maps is of particular importance when we start to look at property and real estate. Looking at historical maps is very important. You know, if you are going to buy a piece of property, you need to know what was happening on that piece of property 20 years ago, 50 years ago, because in some cases, you might end up being liable for whatever the last landowner did. If the last landowner paved over an old cemetery and you didn't know that and you bought that land, you can see how that could come back to haunt you. No pun intended. I'm not talking about poltergeists or anything like that. I just mean that somebody might learn that, oh, you now have this property that was over this graveyard 100 years ago, and now all kinds of legal ramifications might flow from there, right? So looking at historical maps is very important in real estate, especially if you're going to make a large purchase. But what I really want to talk about right now is directional orientation. And so I do have an anecdote that I'll get to in a few minutes. But first, a few tips about directional orientation. Well, actually, I will just get right into the anecdote now. Okay, so I have a short anecdote that is related to map directional orientation. And it goes back to 1998. In 1998, I had just moved to Cleveland, Ohio. And I didn't know anything about Cleveland. I didn't know where anything was. Just how some of you might have felt the first time you moved to, or if you moved to Nashville to go to Tennessee State University and you didn't know your way around campus, you didn't know where anything was in Nashville if you came from out of town. That's the same way I felt when I went to Cleveland, except I went to Cleveland for a new job. And I found out not too long after I moved that the Dance Theater of Harlem was going to be performing in Cleveland. And so I thought I still had that up. So the Dance Theater of Harlem is one of the top performing arts companies in the world, not just the best Black performing arts company. They are one of the top ballet outfits in the world. So, you know, I consider myself a Renaissance man. I wanted to go to see the Dance Theater of Harlem. The tickets were relatively pricey. They were over $100 each, and that was in 1998. One thing about the Dance Theater of Harlem is that you cannot show up late. Okay, you show up late to the Dance Theater of Harlem show, and they do not let you in the door. Doesn't matter how much you paid for the tickets. Doors closed when it's time for the show to start. Boom. If you're not there, you're not getting in. So I did not want to be late. But again, I had never been to Cleveland. I had no idea where anything was. So when I ordered the tickets came in the mail, and in the mail came a bulletin with the map on it. Well, actually, it had two maps, and this is it right here. So here's the Playhouse Square Theater in Cleveland, where the Dance Theater of Harlem was going to perform. And then here's a second map on the same that came with the tickets. Now, on this map, the Dance Theater of Harlem was represented by this point symbol, this P. So notice here's Euclid Avenue, and then there's Euclid Avenue. But I noticed that something was wrong right away. When I found the north arrow, okay, so that's the first thing that we should do in terms of directional orientation is look for a north arrow on the map. If there is no north arrow, we should assume that north is towards the top of the map, but that's not always the case. Okay. Sometimes that's true, sometimes that is not true. Okay. So we have to be very careful. Now, but if we do know the north direction, west is to your left and east is to your right. If you're facing north, if you're outside and you're facing north and you know you're facing north, west is to your left, east is to your right. Just remember that simple rule. Obviously, south is the opposite direction from north. Okay, that should be pretty obvious. So I found a north arrow on this map because, you know, I'm a geographer. I said, okay, well, here's Euclid Avenue. That's where the Playhouse Theater is located. And Euclid Avenue runs from southwest to northeast. Okay. But then I looked on this map and I saw Euclid Avenue and I said, wait a minute, here's the north arrow. But on this map, Euclid Avenue is running from northwest to southeast. I said something is clearly wrong here. One of these maps is incorrect. And I can't use the incorrect map because if I get lost and I end up driving around Cleveland and miss the start time for the Dance Theater of Harlem, I won't get in with my $100 tickets. Got to get there on time, preferably early. So I said, well, wait, well, how do I know which one of these maps is correct? I'm not from Cleveland. Now, understand, this is 1998. There's no Google Maps. There's none of this stuff. That doesn't exist. It didn't exist back then. This is all I had, was this and that, okay? So I thought about something that I knew about old school hip hop. Back in the day, there was a group called Bone Thugs and Harmony, and they were from Cleveland. They were discovered by Eazy-E, another old school rapper you might have heard about. Okay, so they were from Cleveland. They dedicated an album to Eazy-E, and it was called E99 Eternal. So it was devoted to the Eazy-E. But what was the 99 about? What did that mean? Was it 1999? No. These guys grew up on East 99th Street in Cleveland. So I knew that if, in fact, these guys were on East 99th Street, and I look at this map and I notice that as we go towards the east, the numbered streets get higher, that this map must be correct. Because notice we go from East 9th, East 12th, East 13th, East 30th. Eventually you get to East 99th Street. So that told me that this map is correct. So we have to have some understanding about the landscape before making any assumptions about direction. How did I know this map was wrong? Look at this map. As we move towards the east, we go what? 18th, East 18th, East 17th, East 13th, East 12th. So you're going farther east, but the number of streets are getting lower. So I knew that this map was wrong. And so the end of the story was we made it, got there on time. It was a wonderful show. Everybody was happy. But I just told you my own interesting story with maps just to emphasize the importance of understanding the lay of the land and landscape when we're trying to determine directional orientation. Be sure that north is north, okay, or be sure that south is south, or whatever direction is before you make any assumptions. Because who makes maps? Human beings, and human beings make mistakes. So whoever created that map, whoever created this map, just slapped that north arrow on there, didn't pay any attention to what was going on the rest of the map, just decided, well, north is at the top of the page, so I'm going to just slap this north arrow on there. That was a mistake, which makes this map inaccurate. So map direction, directional orientation is obviously the number one reason that we use maps in navigation. So pay close attention to that. The next thing I wanted to focus upon are map symbols. Now, there are three kinds of map symbols. There are point symbols, there are line symbols, and there are area symbols. Let's start off with point symbols. I already showed you one on this map, where that P represents the point where the Playhouse Theater in Cleveland is